crimson blade pierces through Obi-Wan Kenobi's chest. The young Jedi's eyes go wide. His lightsaber clatters to the floor, and in that single moment, the entire galaxy's future shatters. Qui-Gon Jinn screams. Not the measured cry of a Jedi Master, a father's scream. Raw, primal, devastating. Everything you know about Star Wars just changed. Anakin Skywalker will never have the brother who kept him anchored to the light. Luke will never have the mentor who guides him to his destiny. The rebellion will never have the general who turns the tide, all because Darth Maul's blade struck 6 inches to the left. This is the reactor room on Naboo, the duel of the fates. But the wrong Jedi is dying. Let me take you back. Obi-Wan is separated from Qui-Gon by the laser gates. He watches helplessly as his master battles the Zabrak Sith Lord alone. Qui-Gon is tired. Maul is relentless. When the gates finally open, Obi-Wan doesn't think. He only feels rage, fear, desperation. He charges forward, his form sloppy, his guard open. Maul sees it. The Sith Lord has been waiting for this exact moment. He sidesteps with predatory grace. The double-bladed lightsaber spins, and it finds its mark. Obi-Wan Kenobi falls. His connection to the Force flickers out like a candle in a storm. Gone. Qui-Gon Jinn screams in anguish, a sound that echoes through the reactor shaft. The loss of his Padawan, the young man he had trained and grown to love like a son, ignites something primal within the maverick Jedi Master. Drawing upon reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed, Qui-Gon presses his attack with renewed ferocity. This time, grief is his ally, sharpening his focus rather than clouding it. Maul, perhaps surprised by this surge of power, makes a critical error. Qui-Gon's lightsaber finds an opening, and the Zabrak Sith Lord is cut down, his body tumbling into the seemingly endless shaft below. But the victory is hollow. Qui-Gon collapses to his knees beside Obi-Wan's body. Cradling his fallen apprentice as tears stream down his weathered face. When Qui-Gon emerges from the Theed Palace, carrying Obi-Wan's body, the celebration around him feels like a cruel mockery. The Battle of Naboo has been won, the Trade Federation defeated, but the cost has been devastating. Young Anakin Skywalker, who had just destroyed the droid control ship, rushes to Qui-Gon's side, his innocent face crumpling when he sees the fallen Jedi. Qui-Gon is a man transformed by loss, his usually serene demeanor replaced by a haunted, hollow look. He has questions that demand answers, and at the top of his list is the nature of the being that killed his Padawan. Darth Maul's existence confirms what Qui-Gon has suspected. The Sith have returned. The funeral for Obi-Wan Kenobi on Naboo is attended by the Jedi Council, dignitaries from across the Republic, and a heartbroken Qui-Gon Jinn. As the pyre burns, Qui-Gon makes a silent vow. He will honor Obi-Wan's memory by ensuring that his death was not in vain. The boy, Anakin Skywalker, who Qui-Gon believes is the chosen one, must be trained. This conviction has only grown stronger in the wake of tragedy. Obi-Wan had been skeptical about Anakin, questioning whether taking on the boy was wise, but now Qui-Gon feels a responsibility not just to the prophecy, but to his fallen apprentice. He will prove that his instincts about Anakin were correct. When Qui-Gon appears before the Jedi Council to request permission to train Anakin, the dynamics are fundamentally different from our original timeline. In the Prime timeline, a dying Qui-Gon passed the responsibility to Obi-Wan, and the Council, respecting the wishes of a fallen master, reluctantly agreed. Here, Qui-Gon stands before them alive, but changed. Master Yoda senses the darkness of grief clinging to Qui-Gon like a shadow. Mace Windu expresses deep concerns about Qui-Gon's emotional state, questioning whether a Jedi wrestling with such profound loss should take on a Padawan, especially one as old and potentially dangerous as Anakin Skywalker. The debate within the council chambers is intense. Qui-Gon argues with a passion that borders on desperation. He speaks of the prophecy, of the will of the Force, of his unshakable belief that Anakin is meant to bring balance. But beneath his words, the council senses something troubling: attachment, grief, and perhaps even a touch of anger. Yoda closes his eyes, reaching out through the Force, sensing the turbulence in Qui-Gon's spirit. The Maverick Master has always walked close to the edge of Jedi orthodoxy, but now he teeters on a precipice. Mace Windu voices what others are thinking: that Qui-Gon seeks to train Anakin not purely out of adherence to the prophecy, but as a way to give meaning to Obi-Wan's death, to justify the sacrifice. After much deliberation, the council reaches a compromise, though it is far from ideal. They will allow Anakin to be trained, but with conditions. Qui-Gon must first take time to meditate, to process his grief, and to reconnect with the light side of the Force. Another Jedi Master, perhaps Plo Koon or even Mace Windu himself, will oversee Anakin's initial training, evaluating the boy's progress and temperament. Only when the Council is satisfied that both Master and potential apprentice are ready will Qui-Gon be permitted to formally take Anakin as his Padawan. It is a cautious approach, born of genuine concern, but it creates an unusual situation that will have profound implications. For young Anakin Skywalker, this period is confusing and painful. He has left behind his mother on Tatooine, sacrificing everything for a chance to become a Jedi, yet he finds himself in a state of limbo. Qui-Gon, the man who promised him a better life, is distant, lost in meditation and grief. The temporary masters assigned to evaluate him are kind but reserved, treating him as a curiosity rather than a true apprentice. Anakin feels the other younglings staring at him, whispering about the slave boy who started training far too late. Without Obi-Wan's patient guidance and brotherly affection from the original timeline, Anakin's integration into the Jedi Order is rocky and isolating. Qui-Gon Jinn, meanwhile, wrestles with demons both internal and external. In meditation, he revisits the moment of Obi-Wan's death over and over, searching for what he could have done differently. The Force offers him visions, some comforting, others disturbing. He sees Obi-Wan at peace, united with the Force, but he also sees darker possibilities, futures where his attachment to Anakin leads down dangerous paths. The line between honoring Obi-Wan's memory and being consumed by guilt blurs. Qui-Gon has always trusted his instincts, his connection to the living Force, but now he questions everything. Is his certainty about Anakin truly the will of the Force? Or is it the desperate need of a grieving master to find purpose in tragedy? Months pass before the Council finally permits Qui-Gon to take Anakin as his formal Padawan. By this time, Anakin is nearly 10 years old, and the scars of his unusual introduction to the Jedi Order have begun to set. He has learned to hide his emotions behind a mask of compliance, to bury his feelings of abandonment and confusion. When Qui-Gon finally approaches him, offering the braid of a Padawan, Anakin accepts with a mixture of relief and resentment. The bond between them is complicated from the start, layered with unspoken expectations and the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi hovering between them. Qui-Gon's approach to training Anakin is radically different from what Obi-Wan's would have been. Where Obi-Wan was disciplined, methodical, and deeply committed to Jedi orthodoxy, Qui-Gon is intuitive, unconventional, and willing to bend rules when he believes it serves the greater good. He teaches Anakin to trust his instincts, to listen to the living Force, and to question dogma when it conflicts with compassion. These lessons resonate with Anakin's naturally rebellious spirit, and in many ways they forge a powerful partnership. Qui-Gon sees in Anakin the raw potential to change the galaxy, and Anakin finds in Qui-Gon a father figure who seems to understand him in ways the other Jedi do not. However, this unconventional training comes with significant drawbacks. Qui-Gon, still processing his grief, is not as vigilant about Anakin's emotional attachments as he should be. When Anakin speaks longingly of his mother, still enslaved on Tatooine, Qui-Gon sympathizes deeply. Unlike the Council's teaching that Jedi must let go of such bonds, Qui-Gon encourages Anakin to hold on to his love for his mother, to channel it into motivation to become strong enough to help her one day. This validation of attachment plants seeds that will grow in dangerous directions. Qui-Gon believes he is teaching compassion and connection to the living Force, but he is also teaching Anakin that the Jedi Code's restrictions on attachment are optional, even misguided. As Anakin grows into his teenage years, his power in the Force blossoms spectacularly. Qui-Gon's training, focused on intuition and connection to the living Force, amplifies Anakin's natural abilities. He becomes a phenomenal pilot, a brilliant tactician, and a lightsaber duelist of exceptional skill. However, his emotional control lags behind his raw power. Qui-Gon, believing that emotions are part of the natural flow of the Force rather than obstacles to be suppressed, does not drill the emotional discipline that the Jedi Order traditionally emphasizes. This creates a young man who is powerful, passionate, and volatile, a combination that the Council watches with increasing alarm. The relationship between Qui-Gon and the Jedi Council deteriorates steadily. Masters like Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi express concerns about Anakin's training, citing instances where the young Padawan has acted rashly. allowed emotions to guide his decisions, or questioned the wisdom of the council openly. Qui-Gon defends his apprentice fiercely, arguing that Anakin's passion is a strength, not a weakness, and that the Jedi Order's rigid adherence to emotional suppression has made them ineffective in a changing galaxy. These arguments echo through the temple, creating factions and divisions. Some younger Jedi find Qui-Gon's perspective refreshing, while the more traditional masters see it as dangerous heresy. When Anakin is 16, a crisis forces Qui-Gon to make a choice that will define their relationship. Reports reach the Jedi Temple that Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mother, is in danger on Tatooine. The details are vague, but the message is clear. She needs help. Anakin begs Qui-Gon to go to her, and Qui-Gon, remembering his own loss and believing in the importance of compassion, agrees. They travel to Tatooine without the Council's permission, an act of defiance that will have consequences. When they arrive, they discover that Shmi has been freed from slavery by a moisture farmer named Cliegg Lars, whom she has married. However, she has recently been captured by Tusken raiders. Anakin and Qui-Gon track the Tusken camp, and what they find ignites a rage in Anakin that Qui-Gon has never witnessed. Shmi is alive but gravely injured, and she dies in Anakin's arms shortly after they free her. The young Padawan's grief explodes into fury, and before Qui-Gon can stop him, Anakin ignites his lightsaber and begins slaughtering the Tusken raiders. Not just the warriors, but the entire camp, including women and children. Qui-Gon, arriving moments too late, witnesses the massacre and is horrified. This is not justice. This is darkness. In the aftermath, Qui-Gon confronts Anakin, and for the first time, master and apprentice truly clash. Anakin, his face twisted with pain and anger, justifies his actions. They killed his mother. They deserve to die. Every single one of them. Qui-Gon tries to explain the difference between justice and vengeance, between defending the innocent and exterminating the guilty, but his words ring hollow. After all, has he not taught Anakin to trust his emotions, to act on his instincts? Has he not validated attachment and love as natural parts of the Force? Anakin throws these teachings back at Qui-Gon, and the Master realizes with dawning horror that his grief-driven approach to training has created something dangerous. They return to Coruscant in tense silence, and Qui-Gon knows he must report what happened to the Council. When he does, the reaction is swift and severe. Mace Windu and the other Masters had warned him about the dangers of his unconventional training, and now their fears have been realized. A Jedi Padawan has committed a massacre, slaughtered innocents in a fit of rage, and crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. The Council debates Anakin's fate intensely. Some argue for his expulsion from the Order, others for his reassignment to a different master, and a few even suggest more severe consequences. Qui-Gon pleads for leniency, arguing that Anakin can still be redeemed, that with proper guidance, he can find his way back to the light. Ultimately, the Council reaches a decision that satisfies no one. Anakin will remain in the Order, but he will no longer be Qui-Gon's Padawan. Instead, he will be assigned to a master known for strict discipline and unwavering adherence to the Jedi Code. The most likely candidate is Mace Windu himself, who volunteers to take on the troubled young man. Qui-Gon is devastated, feeling as though he has failed both Obi-Wan's memory and Anakin himself. Anakin, feeling betrayed by the master he trusted, is bitter and resentful. The bond between them, already strained, shatters completely. Under Mace Windu's tutelage, Anakin's training takes a dramatically different turn. Windu is not interested in validating Anakin's emotions or encouraging his instincts. He drills discipline, control, and adherence to the code with relentless intensity. For Anakin, this feels like a prison after the freedom Qui-Gon offered. He complies outwardly, his skills continuing to grow, but inwardly, he seethes with resentment. The Jedi Order, which once seemed like a path to becoming a hero, now feels like a cage designed to suppress everything that makes him who he is. The warmth and validation he once received from Qui-Gon is replaced by Windu's stern, unyielding expectations. Meanwhile, the galaxy is hurtling toward war. Count Dooku, once a Jedi Master, has left the Order and is gathering separatist forces, disillusioned with the Republic's corruption. The Clone Wars begin, and the Jedi are thrust into the role of generals, leading clone armies into battle. Anakin, now a young man, is knighted early due to his exceptional combat abilities, but his knighting comes without the traditional warmth. It is a battlefield promotion, a necessity of war rather than a celebration of growth. He is assigned command of a clone battalion and sent into the fray, where his tactical brilliance and fearlessness make him a legend among the clones and a concern among the Jedi. Without Obi-Wan as a steadying influence, Anakin's approach to war is more aggressive and less restrained. In the original timeline, Obi-Wan's cautious, defensive tactics balanced Anakin's offensive instincts, and their banter and brotherhood kept Anakin grounded. Here, Anakin fights alone, his strategies bold to the point of recklessness. He wins battles spectacularly but at high costs, both in clone casualties and in the toll the violence takes on his own spirit. The clones under his command admire his bravery, but also fear his intensity, the way his eyes sometimes burn with something more than determination. During the Clone Wars, Anakin's path crosses with Senator Padme Amidala's once again. They had met briefly during the Battle of Naboo as children, and their reunion reignites something powerful. Padme is drawn to Anakin's passion and his genuine desire to make the galaxy a better place, while Anakin sees in Padme a kindred spirit who understands the frustration of working within broken systems. Their romance blossoms quickly, intensified by the backdrop of war and the constant proximity of death. Without Obi-Wan to gently counsel restraint or to serve as a confidant who might have helped Anakin navigate his feelings more wisely, the relationship becomes all-consuming. Anakin and Padme marry in secret, just as they did in the original timeline, but this version of Anakin is more volatile, more open about his defiance of the Jedi Code. Padme, sensing the darkness growing within him, tries to be a stabilizing force, but she is also drawn to the intensity of his love. Their relationship is passionate but turbulent, filled with moments of profound connection and periods of conflict driven by Anakin's increasing frustration with the Jedi Order and the war's moral ambiguities. Throughout the Clone Wars, Qui-Gon Jinn also serves as a general, but he is a changed man. The guilt over what happened with Anakin weighs heavily on him, and he has become more introspective, more cautious. He and Anakin encounter each other occasionally during the war, and these meetings are tense and painful. Qui-Gon sees the darkness growing in his former apprentice and desperately wants to reach him, to somehow undo the damage his grief-clouded training caused. Anakin, for his part, is torn between lingering affection for the man who once believed in him and bitter resentment over what he perceives as abandonment. On one such encounter, during a joint mission to liberate a planet from Separatist control, Qui-Gon attempts to reconnect with Anakin. They fight side by side, their combat synergy still evident despite the years apart. And afterward, Qui-Gon tries to have an honest conversation. He apologizes for failing Anakin, for allowing his own grief over Obi-Wan to cloud his judgment as a teacher. He tells Anakin that he still believes in him, that the darkness he senses does not have to define him. Anakin listens, but his response is cold. He tells Qui-Gon that he does not need saving, that he has found his own path, and that the Jedi Order's fear of emotion has made them weak and ineffective. The conversation ends with both men walking away, and Qui-Gon feels the opportunity to redeem his mistakes slipping through his fingers. Meanwhile, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine watches these developments with great interest. In the original timeline, Palpatine carefully manipulated Anakin through gradual seduction, exploiting the young Jedi's fear of loss and frustration with the Council. Here, the task is almost too easy. This version of Anakin is already disillusioned, already resentful, and already willing to question the Jedi Code. Palpatine positions himself as a mentor and father figure, just as he did before, but he finds the ground far more fertile. Anakin confides in the Chancellor about his frustrations, his secret marriage, and his growing belief that the Jedi are out of touch with the realities of the galaxy. Palpatine feeds this disillusionment carefully, planting seeds of doubt about the Jedi's motivations and intentions. He suggests that the Jedi Order is more interested in maintaining its own power than in serving the people of the Republic. He hints at knowledge and abilities that the Jedi refuse to teach because they fear strength. Most insidiously, he speaks to Anakin's lingering pain over his mother's death, suggesting that the Jedi's prohibition against attachment left her to die, that if the Order truly valued compassion, they would have helped him free her years earlier. These arguments resonate deeply with Anakin because they echo his own. But Anakin has learned not to trust in faith. Faith did not save his mother. Faith will not save Padme. He needs certainty, he needs power, and he needs answers. He tells Qui-Gon that the Jedi Order's philosophy has failed him at every turn, and he walks away from his former master for the last time. Qui-Gon is left in the garden, a crushing sense of déjà vu washing over him. He has lost another apprentice to darkness, and this time he cannot even claim ignorance. He knew the risks, he saw the signs, and still he could not prevent it. Shortly after this conversation, Palpatine reveals his true identity as Darth Sidious to Anakin. The revelation comes during a private meeting in the Chancellor's office, where Palpatine demonstrates his mastery of the dark side. He tells Anakin the story of Darth Plagueis, just as he did in the original timeline, and makes the same seductive promise: "I can teach you to save Padme from certain death." Anakin faces a choice. He could report Palpatine to the Jedi Council, but what then? They would try to arrest or kill Palpatine, and the knowledge that could save Padme would die with him. The Jedi would call it justice, but to Anakin, it would be murder. Another example of their rigid, heartless philosophy. Anakin does report Palpatine's identity to the Council, specifically to Mace Windu, but his motivations are complex. He tells Windu that Palpatine is a Sith Lord, but he also pleads for the Chancellor to be taken alive, for him to be tried rather than executed. Windu, sensing Anakin's inner turmoil but not fully understanding its depth, agrees to bring Palpatine to justice. He assembles a team of Jedi Masters, including Kit Fisto, Aegon Kolar, and Saesi Tiin, and they rush to confront the Chancellor. Anakin is ordered to remain at the temple, but of course he does not comply. The confrontation in Palpatine's office unfolds much as it did in the original timeline. Palpatine's lightsaber skills and mastery of the dark side allow him to cut down 3 Jedi Masters in seconds, leaving only Mace Windu to face him. The duel is fierce, and Windu's Vapad fighting style, which channels darkness back against its wielder, gives him the edge. He disarms Palpatine and holds him at lightsaber point, prepared to execute the Sith Lord. It is at this moment that Anakin arrives, bursting into the office just as Palpatine unleashes Force lightning at Windu. The scene is chaos. Windu's lightsaber deflects the lightning back at Palpatine, disfiguring the Sith Lord, and Windu declares that Palpatine is too dangerous to be left alive. Anakin screams for Windu to stop, arguing that Palpatine must stand trial, that killing him would make the Jedi no better than the Sith. Windu, his lightsaber raised, turns to Anakin and makes a fatal error. He says that Anakin does not understand the true nature of evil, that sometimes the greater good requires difficult choices, and that the Council's wisdom must be trusted. In this moment, Windu embodies everything Anakin has come to resent about the Jedi Order: the arrogance, the rigid adherence to their own judgment, the unwillingness to consider alternative perspectives. Anakin makes his choice. He ignites his lightsaber and strikes, severing Windu's weapon hand. Palpatine, seizing the opportunity, unleashes a torrent of Force lightning that sends Windu hurtling out of the window to his death. In the sudden silence that follows, Anakin realizes what he has done. He has crossed the line from which there is no return. Palpatine rises from the floor, his face twisted and scarred, and offers Anakin a new identity. "Henceforth you shall be known as Darth Vader." Anakin Skywalker, still clinging to the justification that he did this to save Padme, kneels before his new master and accepts the name. Darth Sidious wastes no time. He activates Order 66, the contingency protocol that turns the clone armies against their Jedi generals. Across the galaxy, Jedi are gunned down by the soldiers they fought beside, betrayed in an instant. On Kashyyyk, on Megiddo, on Felucia, and on countless other worlds, the Jedi fall. The purge is swift and brutal. At the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Darth Vader leads the 501st Clone Legion in an assault. He marches through the halls where he once trained, cutting down Jedi Masters, Knights, and even younglings with cold efficiency. The temple burns, and with it, 1,000 generations of Jedi legacy. Qui-Gon Jinn is off-world when Order 66 is executed, leading a campaign in the Outer Rim. His clone commander, loyal until the moment the Order comes through, turns on him without warning. Qui-Gon's connection to the living Force gives him a split-second warning, and he barely escapes the initial ambush. He fights his way through a squad of clones, his heart breaking with each soldier he is forced to strike down. These men, who he led and fought beside, have become his executioners through no fault of their own. Qui-Gon manages to steal a ship and flee, but he is gravely wounded, a blaster bolt having seared through his side. As his ship limps through hyperspace, Qui-Gon reaches out through the Force, trying to sense what has happened. He feels the deaths of thousands of Jedi, their lights extinguished across the galaxy. He senses the temple burning and feels a familiar presence at the heart of the darkness. Anakin. The realization is a dagger to his heart. His former apprentice, the boy he promised to train, the chosen one he believed would bring balance, has become the instrument of the Jedi's destruction. Qui-Gon's grief is overwhelming, compounded by the knowledge that his failures as a master contributed to this catastrophe. Qui-Gon manages to rendezvous with a handful of other surviving Jedi, including Yoda and a few scattered knights who manage to escape the Purge. They meet on a remote asteroid, their faces haggard and their spirits broken. Yoda, ancient and weary, shares what he has learned. The Sith have won. The Republic has been transformed into the Galactic Empire, with Palpatine declaring himself Emperor. The Jedi are declared traitors, and a galaxy-wide hunt for survivors has begun. The small group of survivors debates their next move. Some argue for going into hiding, others for attempting a strike against the Emperor. Qui-Gon advocates for finding Anakin, for trying to bring him back to the light, but Yoda shakes his head sadly. The boy you trained, gone he is. Consumed by Darth Vader. On Coruscant, Darth Vader kneels before his master, receiving new orders. Sidious has learned of a remaining separatist holdout on Mustafar, where the leaders are hiding. Vader is to go there and eliminate them, ending the Clone Wars once and for all. Additionally, Sidious senses that Padme Amidala knows too much. She must be dealt with. Vader bristles at the suggestion that Padme is a threat, insisting that she will understand, that she will join him in creating a new order. Sidious, seeing the attachment that still binds his new apprentice, allows Vader to attempt to bring her to their side. Though he knows it is unlikely to succeed, Vader travels to Padme's apartment, his mind a storm of conflicting emotions. He has done terrible things, crossed lines he never imagined crossing, but it was all for her. He will make her understand. When he arrives, Padme is horrified. She has heard the reports of what happened at the temple, of the Jedi being declared traitors, and rumors are circulating about a dark figure leading the attack. When she sees Anakin, his eyes burning with an unnatural yellow tint, she knows the rumors are true. She pleads with him to stop, to leave with her, to abandon this path. But Anakin, now fully Vader in all but name, tries to convince her that he has done this for them, that he has gained the power to save her and to bring order to the galaxy. Their argument escalates, and Padme, heartbroken, tells him that she cannot follow him down this path. She loves the man he was, not the monster he has become. Vader's rage flares. After everything he has sacrificed, she rejects him. He has destroyed the Jedi Order, betrayed everything he once believed in, and she refuses to stand by him. In his anger, he nearly strikes her down, his hand raised and the dark side surging through him. But at the last moment, he stops. He cannot kill her. Instead, he leaves her there, broken and weeping, and departs for Mustafar to complete his mission. On Mustafar, Vader slaughters the Separatist leaders with brutal efficiency, ending the Clone Wars in blood and fire. But he is not alone for long. Qui-Gon Jinn, having learned of Vader's location through the Force and through desperate intelligence gathering, has come to confront his former apprentice. The meeting between them is charged with history and pain. They stand on a landing platform above the lava flows, the heat shimmering around them, and for a moment, neither speaks. Qui-Gon breaks the silence. He tells Anakin that it is not too late, that he can still turn back, that the darkness does not have to consume him completely. He apologizes again for his failures as a master, for allowing his grief over Obi-Wan to blind him to Anakin's needs. He speaks of the Jedi ideal, not as the rigid, fearful dogma that Anakin has come to despise, but as a philosophy of compassion, selflessness, and service. He tells Anakin that love does not have to lead to possession, that caring for others does not have to become selfish attachment. It is a plea from a desperate man trying to save someone he still considers his son. Vader listens, and for a moment, Qui-Gon sees a flicker of Anakin in those yellow-tinged eyes. But then Vader speaks, his voice distorted by the mask of darkness he now wears metaphorically. He tells Qui-Gon that the Jedi are dead because they were weak, that their philosophy led to the suffering of innocence, that their refusal to act allowed evil to flourish. He accuses Qui-Gon of hypocrisy, reminding him that the end comes when Vader, sensing an opening, channels the Force with crushing intensity. He lifts Qui-Gon into the air with telekinesis and slams him against the durasteel wall of the facility. Qui-Gon's lightsaber clatters away and Vader approaches, his blade held high. Qui-Gon, broken and bleeding, looks up at his former apprentice with eyes full of sadness rather than fear. He tells Vader that he forgives him, that he understands the pain that drove him to this, and that somewhere deep within, Anakin Skywalker still lives. These words enrage Vader further. He declares that Anakin Skywalker is dead, that he killed him, just as he will now kill Qui-Gon Jinn. But Vader does not strike immediately. Something stays his hand, a hesitation born of the conflict still raging within him. In that moment, Qui-Gon does something unexpected. He stops fighting, stops defending, and simply accepts his fate. He tells Vader that if killing him will bring him peace, then so be it, but that peace will never come from the dark side, only more pain, more loss, more emptiness. Qui-Gon closes his eyes and reaches out through the Force one last time, not to attack, but to offer understanding and compassion. He becomes one with the Force, his body vanishing before Vader's blade can touch him, leaving only his robes behind. Vader stands alone on the platform, staring at the empty robes, and for the first time since his fall, he feels the full weight of what he has done. Qui-Gon is gone, just as Obi-Wan was gone, just as the Jedi are gone, and it is all because of him. The rage that sustained him falters, replaced by a hollow emptiness. But before he can process this further, he senses Padmé's life force flickering through their bond. She is dying. Panic overwhelms every other emotion, and Vader races back to Coruscant, desperate to reach her in time. He arrives at the medical facility where Padmé has been taken after collapsing. The medical droids inform him that she is dying, that there is nothing they can do. She has lost the will to live, they say, a diagnosis that makes no sense to Vader but terrifies him nonetheless. He rushes to her side and Padmé, weak and fading, looks at him with profound sadness. She tells him that she still loves him, that she always will, but that she cannot live in the galaxy he is creating. She tells him that their children will be born into darkness because of his choices. Children. Vader did not know she was carrying twins. Before he can respond, before he can plead or promise or do anything, Padmé dies. Her last breath a whisper of his true name. Anakin. Vader's anguish erupts in a wave of dark side energy that shatters equipment and cracks the walls. Everything he did, every line he crossed, every atrocity he committed, was to save her, and she is dead anyway. The prophecy he was trying to prevent has come to pass, and he is left with nothing but the darkness. Emperor Palpatine arrives shortly after, sensing his apprentice's torment. He tells Vader that in his anger, he killed her, a lie designed to cement Vader's fall by ensuring he believes there is no redemption possible. Vader, consumed by guilt and grief, accepts this lie as truth. He becomes the Emperor's enforcer fully, a broken man wrapped in darkness, serving an evil master because he has nothing else left. The medical droids, however, successfully deliver Padmé's twins before she dies. Luke and Leia Skywalker are born into a galaxy under the Empire's shadow. Yoda and the few surviving Jedi who learned of the birth make the same decision as in the original timeline. The children must be hidden and protected. Luke is taken to Tatooine to be raised by Owen and Beru Lars, Anakin's stepbrother and his wife. But here is where the timeline diverges significantly. Without Obi-Wan Kenobi to watch over Luke, who will protect the boy? Yoda considers taking on the responsibility himself, but he is too recognizable, too powerful in the Force, and his presence would draw attention. The surviving Jedi are too few and too hunted to provide constant protection. In the end, the decision is made that Luke will be hidden in plain sight, raised as a normal moisture farmer's son with no knowledge of his heritage. No Jedi Guardian will watch over him directly. Instead, Yoda and the other survivors will monitor from afar, hoping that the Force itself will guide the boy when the time is right. Leia is taken to Alderaan to be adopted by Bail Organa and raised as a princess, similarly hidden but in a completely different environment. The years pass. The Empire consolidates its power, building the Death Star and crushing any resistance with ruthless efficiency. Darth Vader becomes a figure of terror across the galaxy, the Emperor's right hand, hunting down the last of the Jedi and enforcing Imperial will. The man who was once Anakin Skywalker is buried so deep beneath the armor and the darkness that even those who knew him would not recognize what remains. Vader sometimes dreams of Padmé, of Qui-Gon, of the life he might have had, But he pushes these thoughts away, focusing instead on his duty to the Empire and his service to his master. On Tatooine, Luke Skywalker grows up knowing nothing of his true heritage. He is a farm boy, dreaming of adventure among the stars but trapped by his responsibilities to his aunt and uncle. There is no mysterious old hermit living nearby to tell him stories about his father or the Jedi. There is no one to give him a lightsaber and say that these are the weapons of a more civilized age. Luke's connection to the Force manifests in subtle ways, making him an exceptional pilot and giving him uncanny reflexes, but without training or guidance, he has no idea what he truly is. He is restless, yearning for something more, but he has no direction, no purpose beyond the monotony of moisture farming. When Luke is 19, the same age Anakin was when he fell to the dark side, events conspire to pull him into the larger conflict. The Rebel Alliance, growing bolder in their resistance to the Empire, has stolen the Death Star plans, and Princess Leia Organa is fleeing with them when her ship is captured above Tatooine. She manages to hide the plans in an astromech droid R2-D2 and sends it down to the planet's surface before being captured by Darth Vader himself. The droid, along with its companion C-3PO, is eventually purchased by Owen Lars, bringing them to the same moisture farm where Luke lives. Luke discovers Leia's message inside R2-D2, a holographic plea for help directed to someone named Obi-Wan Kenobi. The name means nothing to Luke, but the image of the beautiful princess captures his imagination. When the droids run away, Luke chases after them, and his search leads him to discover that Tusken Raiders are in the area. He is attacked and knocked unconscious, and when he wakes, he finds himself being tended to by someone unexpected. It is not Obi-Wan Kenobi, for he died years ago on Naboo. Instead, it is a different figure. Someone who has been living in exile in the wastes. Watching from afar, the figure introduces himself as Ben, an old hermit who has been living in these wastes for many years. But as Luke recovers and they talk, Ben reveals more. He is a survivor of the Jedi Purge, one of the few who escaped Order 66. He has been drawn to Tatooine by the Force, sensing that something important exists here, though he did not know what until now. When he learns who Luke is, the son of Anakin Skywalker, he is both awed and horrified. This surviving Jedi is younger than Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan would have been, perhaps someone who was just a Padawan during the Clone Wars, and his knowledge of the larger events is incomplete. He knows that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, but the details are murky. This surviving Jedi, let us call him Master Coda for the sake of our story, tells Luke a carefully edited version of the truth. He explains that Luke's father was a Jedi Knight, a hero of the Clone Wars, who was betrayed and murdered by Darth Vader. He does not tell Luke that Vader and his father are the same person, either because he genuinely does not know all the details or because he believes Luke is not ready for that truth. Coda offers to train Luke in the ways of the Force, to teach him what it means to be a Jedi, though his own training is incomplete. And much of the Jedi knowledge has been lost. Luke, desperate for purpose and adventure, eagerly accepts. They travel off-world together, joining up with Han Solo, a smuggler they meet in Mos Eisley, and his Wookiee co-pilot Chewbacca. Their mission is to deliver the Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance and to rescue Princess Leia from the Empire. The journey to the Death Star proceeds much as it did in the original timeline, with the group sneaking aboard the massive battle station and fighting their way through Imperial forces. However, when they attempt to rescue Leia, they discover that Darth Vader himself is on the station. The confrontation between Vader and this group of heroes is tense. Vader senses something through the Force when he approaches, a presence that feels achingly familiar yet impossible. There is a boy, young and untrained, but powerful in the Force, and there is something about him that pulls at the edges of Vader's consciousness. When Vader sees Luke's face, something shifts. The resemblance to Padme is striking, and Vader realizes with dawning horror and hope that this must be his son. The child Padme carried, the child he believed had died with her, is alive. Vader does not attack Luke immediately. Instead, he tries to speak to him, his mechanical voice cutting through the chaos. He tells Luke that he knows who he is, that Luke is his son, and that they can be together, can rule the galaxy as father and son. Luke, shocked and disbelieving, rejects the claim. He insists that Vader killed his father, that he is nothing but a monster. Vader, desperate in a way he has not been since Padme's death, tries to explain that he is Anakin Skywalker, that everything he did was to gain the power to protect those he loved. But Luke, raised with no knowledge of his father except the lies he has been told, sees only a villain trying to manipulate him. Master Yoda steps between them, his lightsaber ignited, and challenges Vader to a duel. The fight is brief and brutal. Yoda is skilled, but he is no match for Vader's power and experience. Vader cuts him down, not out of malice, but out of desperation to get to Luke, to make his son understand. As Yoda falls, mortally wounded, he tells Luke to run, to escape and warn the rebellion. Luke, tears streaming down his face, flees with Han, Leia, and the droids, escaping the Death Star as it prepares to destroy the rebel base on Yavin 4. The Battle of Yavin proceeds, with the rebels launching their desperate attack on the Death Star's thermal exhaust port. Luke, having received only the most rudimentary force training from Yoda, joins the assault as a pilot. His natural abilities make him a formidable combatant, but he is raw and undisciplined. As he makes his attack run down the trench, Vader personally pursues him in his TIE Advanced Fighter. Vader can sense Luke through the Force, can feel the boy's fear and determination, and he is torn. This is his son, the last connection to Padme, and he is trying to destroy the Empire's ultimate weapon. In the original timeline, Obi-Wan's voice guided Luke, telling him to trust in the Force. Here, Luke hears nothing but the chaos of battle. He closes his eyes, reaches out instinctively, and fires. The torpedoes streak toward the exhaust port, and against all odds, they find their mark. The Death Star explodes in a cataclysmic fireball, and Vader, having been knocked out of the trench by Han Solo's unexpected intervention, spins away into space, surviving the destruction of the battle station. In the aftermath, the Rebel Alliance celebrates a major victory, but Luke is haunted. He cannot shake the image of Darth Vader claiming to be his father, cannot forget the desperation in that mechanical voice. He confides in Leia, who he has grown close to during their adventure, not knowing that she is his twin sister. Leia tries to reassure him that Vader was lying, that the Dark Lord would say anything to manipulate him. But Luke is not convinced. He seeks out what remains of the Jedi knowledge in the rebellion, trying to understand what he is and what he might become. Meanwhile, Vader reports to Emperor Palpatine, revealing what he has discovered. The Emperor is initially displeased that Vader allowed the Death Star to be destroyed, but when he learns that Skywalker's son lives, his anger turns to interest. Here is an opportunity. If the boy can be turned, if he can be brought to the dark side, he could replace Vader as the Emperor's apprentice. Or better yet, father and son together could be unstoppable servants of the Sith. Palpatine begins to formulate a plan, one that will test Luke Skywalker and determine his fate. Over the next few years, the galactic civil war intensifies. Luke becomes a key figure in the rebellion, his Force abilities growing stronger even without formal training. He has visions sometimes, dreams where he sees a figure in Jedi robes, elderly and wise, who seems to be trying to teach him. These are the Force ghosts of Qui-Gon Jinn and Master Yoda, both of whom learned the secret of retaining their consciousness after death. They guide Luke as best they can through the Force, but without physical presence. Their ability to train him is limited. Luke also continues to be pursued by Darth Vader, who is obsessed with finding his son and bringing him to the dark side. Vader believes that if they are together, they can overthrow the Emperor and bring order to the galaxy. He sees in Luke the second chance he was denied, the opportunity to have family again, to not be alone in the darkness. But every encounter between them ends in conflict, with Luke rejecting Vader's offers and escaping, often with help from his friends in the rebellion. During one such encounter on a planet called Bespin, Vader finally captures Luke and brings him before the Emperor on the second Death Star, which is under construction. The Emperor, ancient and malevolent, attempts to seduce Luke to the dark side, using the same tactics he used on Anakin. He shows Luke the futility of the rebellion's efforts, the inevitability of the Empire's victory, and the power that awaits him if he joins them. He tells Luke that his friends will die, that the rebellion will be crushed unless Luke agrees to serve. Vader, standing beside his master, watches silently, hoping that his son will accept, that they can finally be together. Luke is tempted. He is exhausted from years of war, haunted by the losses he has suffered, and desperate to save his friends. But in the moment of his greatest doubt, he hears voices through the Force. Qui-Gon Jinn's voice reminds him that the dark side offers only false promises, that power gained through fear and anger is hollow. Master Yoda's voice tells him to trust in the Force, to have faith in the light. And then, unexpectedly, he hears another voice, one he does not recognize but that carries a warmth and compassion that cuts through the darkness. It is the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Jedi who died before Luke was born, but whose spirit has been watching over the galaxy, hoping for this moment. Luke refuses the Emperor's offer. He declares that he is a Jedi like his father was before him, and that he will never turn to the dark side. The Emperor, enraged, unleashes Force lightning on Luke, torturing the young man with dark side energy. Vader watches his son writhing in agony, and something breaks within him. He has stood by and watched too many people he loved suffer and die. Padme, Qui-Gon, Shmi, and now his own son is being killed before his eyes. The prophecy echoes in his mind. You were to bring balance to the Force. Perhaps there is still time. Perhaps even now he can fulfill his destiny. Darth Vader turns on Emperor Palpatine. He grabs his master and, despite the lightning that courses through his suit and burns his already damaged body, he lifts the Emperor off the ground. Palpatine screams in rage and surprise, unleashing the full fury of his dark side powers, but Vader does not relent. With the last of his strength, Vader hurls the Emperor into the reactor shaft of the Death Star, destroying the Sith Lord once and for all. The cost, however, is immense. Vader's suit is critically damaged, and he collapses, his life support systems failing. Luke rushes to his father's side, cradling the fallen Dark Lord's helmet. With trembling hands, Vader reaches up and asks Luke to remove his mask, to let him see his son with his own eyes before he dies. Luke hesitates, knowing that removing the mask will kill him, but Vader insists. When the mask comes off, Luke sees the face of Anakin Skywalker for the first time, scarred and pale, but undeniably human. Anakin tells Luke that he was right, that there was still good in him, and that Luke has saved him. He asks for forgiveness for all the terrible things he has done. And Luke, tears streaming down his face, tells him that he forgives him, that he loves him. Anakin Skywalker dies in his son's arms, finally at peace. His spirit, freed from the darkness that consumed him for so long, joins Qui-Gon, Yoda, and Obi-Wan in the Force, becoming one with the light. Luke escapes the exploding Death Star, carrying his father's body with him, and returns to the rebel fleet. The Empire, leaderless and in disarray with both the Emperor and Vader dead, begins to crumble. The rebellion has won, but the victory is bittersweet for Luke, who has lost the father he barely knew. In the celebration that follows the Battle of Endor, Luke stands apart from the festivities, gazing up at the stars. Leia, who has learned that she is Luke's sister and that Vader was their father, joins him. They talk about their parents, about Anakin and Padme, and about the legacy they have inherited. It is a complicated legacy, one of heroism and tragedy, of love and loss, of the thin line between light and darkness. They vow to honor the good their father did in the end, to help rebuild the galaxy, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. As Luke looks up at the night sky, he sees three shimmering forms appear before him. Qui-Gon Jinn, Master Yoda, and Obi-Wan Kenobi smile at him, their spirits visible through the Force. And then, a fourth figure joins them. It is Anakin Skywalker, young and whole, free from the scars and the darkness. He nods to his son, a gesture of love and approval, and then the four Jedi fade into the Force, leaving Luke with a sense of peace and hope for the future. This alternate timeline reveals how crucial Obi-Wan Kenobi was to the fate of the galaxy. His death on Naboo set in motion a cascade of events that nearly led to the permanent victory of the dark side. Qui-Gon, consumed by grief, trained Anakin in a way that left him vulnerable to manipulation. Without Obi-Wan's steady hand, his tactical brilliance, and his brotherly love, Anakin fell to darkness faster and more completely. The Jedi Order was destroyed, the Empire rose, and millions suffered. Yet even in this darker timeline, hope prevailed. The light side of the Force found a way, guiding Luke Skywalker to redeem his father and restore balance, just as the prophecy foretold. But the cost was immense. In reflecting on this what-if scenario, we see the profound impact that individuals can have on the course of history. Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the chosen one. He was not the most powerful Jedi, nor the wisest. But he was exactly who Anakin Skywalker needed at exactly the right time. His presence, his guidance, and his unwavering belief in doing what was right, even when it was difficult, made all the difference. Without him, the galaxy descended into darkness. With him, as we saw in the original timeline, there was hope. This is the power of connection, of mentorship, of love expressed not through possession, but through selfless service. Qui-Gon Jinn loved Anakin, but his love was clouded by his own pain and his certainty that he knew what was best. Obi-Wan, had he lived, would have loved Anakin too, but with a different kind of love, one rooted in patience, in discipline, in the understanding that sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let someone make their own choices while standing ready to catch them when they fall. The tragedy of this alternate timeline is that Anakin Skywalker had the potential for greatness, the power to bring balance to the Force, and the capacity for profound love. But without the right guidance, those gifts became curses. His power made him dangerous, his love made him possessive, and his desire to prevent loss led him to cause immeasurable suffering. It is a cautionary tale about the importance of how we raise and teach the next generation, about the consequences of well-meaning but flawed mentorship, and about the thin line between helping someone grow and enabling their worst instincts. Yet even in this darkness, there is a glimmer of light. Luke Skywalker, raised without knowledge of the Force, without training, and without the guidance of a Jedi Master, still chose the path of light. When faced with the same temptations that destroyed his father, when offered power and the chance to save his friends through the dark side, he refused. Perhaps this is the true lesson of the Force, that goodness is not simply taught, it is chosen. Anakin chose darkness, despite having teachers who tried to guide him toward the light. Luke chose light, despite having every reason to give in to anger and fear. In the end, both timelines converge on the same truth. Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. In the original timeline, he did so by destroying the Sith at the moment of his redemption, with Obi-Wan's influence having shaped him into someone capable of that final act of selflessness. In this alternate timeline, he still fulfilled the prophecy, still destroyed the Emperor and saved his son, but the path to that redemption was longer, darker, and far more costly. Obi-Wan Kenobi's absence made all the difference, proving that even the most seemingly insignificant individuals can change the fate of the galaxy. So what if Maul killed Obi-Wan in the Phantom Menace? The galaxy would have burned. The Jedi would have fallen even faster. Anakin Skywalker's descent into darkness would have been all but inevitable. But in the end, the light would still find a way, because that is the nature of the Force. Balance cannot be denied forever. The question is not whether balance will come, but at what cost and how many will suffer before it does. Obi-Wan Kenobi's survival in the original timeline spared the galaxy much of that suffering, making him not just a Jedi Master, but a true hero whose impact echoes across generations.